What if I told you Meghan Markle just sold Princess Diana's most cherished jewelry, without Prince Harry's knowledge, to fund a secret boutique in a Los Angeles hotel? In an explosive twist shaking the royal world, Meghan Markle has allegedly turned Diana's private heirlooms into a profit scheme behind closed doors, under velvet lights, and without telling her husband. Prince Harry is said to be seething, blindsided by what some are calling the ultimate betrayal. But that's just the beginning. We've uncovered the secret suite, the whispered transactions, and the growing financial storm threatening to bankrupt the Sussex brand. What really happened behind those luxury doors? And how much of Diana's legacy is now gone forever? Stay with us. This gets darker than anyone imagined. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. What would you do if the legacy of your late mother, someone beloved around the world, was turned into a high-priced showroom display without your knowledge? What if you discovered that the most sacred artifacts left behind, gifts, heirlooms, and memories once meant to be passed down to your children, had been traded away for boutique profits and Instagram buzz? For Prince Harry, that nightmare may have just become reality. In an explosive development that has left royal watchers stunned and family insiders scrambling, Meghan Markle is accused of secretly selling off pieces from Princess Diana's treasured jewelry collection to fund a controversial business venture in Los Angeles. The alleged venue? A luxury hotel suite transformed into a temporary boutique aimed at LA's elite, where, behind closed doors, some of Diana's most iconic pieces were reportedly up for private sale. But perhaps the most shocking part? Harry had no idea it was happening. According to sources close to the couple, Prince Harry discovered the jewelry sale only after the event had taken place. It wasn't a royal announcement. It wasn't a formal statement. It was a flurry of whispers, social media posts, and leaked photos from Hollywood stylists that tipped him off. And when he realized what had been done, insiders claim he erupted, not just with anger, but with betrayal. Because this wasn't just jewelry. These were more than ornaments. They were symbols. Every brooch, every bracelet, every ring had been carefully preserved after Diana's tragic death. They represented memories of a mother who once walked through landmines in Angola, comforted AIDS patients when the world looked away, and left behind more than a crown. She left behind values. To many, those values stood in stark contrast to the glitter and glamour of Meghan's pop-up jewelry display. And yet, here we are, a suite at the top of one of Beverly Hills' most elite hotels. Champagne glasses clinking. Guest lists filled with influencers, reality stars, and stylists. Jewelry cases lit up with soft LED lights. And inside them, pieces that once belonged to the people's princess, now with five-figure price tags and promotional hashtags. The fallout was immediate, not just behind palace walls, but across the world. Critics called it disgusting, shameless, and an insult to Diana's memory. On Twitter, hashtags like #NotDiana'sWill and #LegacyForSale started trending within hours of the story breaking. Even loyal Sussex fans were left confused, asking themselves if Meghan had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. But this story is more than scandal. It's more than clickbait. This story is the slow, tragic unraveling of what was once seen as a modern fairy tale. From a royal wedding watched by millions to a private boutique peddling legacy heirlooms, the journey of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle has taken a turn few could have predicted. At the heart of it is a man, Harry, who loved his mother fiercely, protected her memory religiously, and now finds himself facing what insiders are calling the deepest cut of all. Because when Harry first gave Meghan access to Diana's jewelry, it was seen as an intimate act of trust, a way of welcoming her not just into his life, but into his mother's memory. It was the kind of gesture that said, "She would have loved you too." But trust, once fractured, can be difficult to rebuild. The timing couldn't be worse. As reports of financial instability swirl around the couple, Netflix setbacks, Spotify cancellations, multi-million-dollar mortgages, the jewelry incident adds fuel to rumors that the Sussexes are financially strained, desperate to stay relevant, and perhaps making reckless decisions to stay afloat. So in this video, we're pulling back the velvet curtain. You'll learn exactly which pieces from Diana's collection were allegedly sold, what guests at the secret hotel boutique described, and why Harry's reported reaction may signal the beginning of the end, not just for a marriage, but for a reputation already hanging by a thread. We'll also explore how this moment fits into a bigger story, one that stretches all the way back to Diana's tragic death in 1997 and how her memory has been preserved, manipulated, and honored across generations. From William safeguarding her image as a quiet guardian of tradition to Harry's more outspoken and emotional tributes, the legacy of Diana Spencer remains one of the most powerful symbols in modern royal history. And now that legacy is in question, did Meghan really believe she had the right to sell those items? Did she tell Harry in advance? Was this a business move gone wrong, or a calculated plan all along? Was this about money or ego? And perhaps most importantly, how will the royal family respond? But before we dive into the gritty details, here's something to think about. What happens when love turns into leverage? When memory becomes a marketing strategy? When trust, sacred trust, is broken for a profit margin? It all began with a few delicate pieces placed carefully in velvet-lined boxes, fragments of a past too powerful to be forgotten. Princess Diana's jewelry was not merely beautiful or valuable. It was iconic, symbolic, and deeply personal. And now, some of the most meaningful pieces are at the center of a swirling storm involving secrecy, betrayal, and alleged profit-making. To understand the weight of what has happened, we must begin by examining what exactly was sold, or at least, what is alleged to have been sold. Over the years, Princess Diana's jewelry has become as legendary as the woman herself. From the sapphire engagement ring now worn by Kate Middleton to the butterfly earrings Meghan once donned during an official royal tour, each item carries decades of sentiment, public memory, and private emotion. Among the pieces now reportedly missing from inventory are three with profound significance. The first is the famed aquamarine ring Diana wore after her separation from Prince Charles, sometimes referred to as her freedom ring. Diana was famously photographed wearing it on her right hand, a bold, unspoken signal to the world that she had reclaimed her independence and her identity. Meghan Markle wore the ring to her wedding reception in 2018, a gesture that was interpreted at the time as deeply symbolic. It was meant to be a passing of the torch from one woman who fought to define herself within royal life to another who was just beginning that battle. And now, that very ring is believed to have changed hands. The second item raising concern is a diamond bracelet Diana received as a gift from Dodi Fayed just weeks before her death. Though rarely seen in public, the bracelet was part of a collection that held tremendous emotional value for her sons, especially given the tragic circumstances surrounding her relationship with Fayed and their final days together. According to sources close to Harry, the bracelet was not supposed to be worn publicly or displayed. It was part of what Harry reportedly called the sacred keepsakes, items meant to be preserved, not paraded. The third, and perhaps most disturbing, sale involves a gold necklace with a small sapphire pendant. The piece had little value in the auction world compared to others, but to Diana it had been a treasured gift from her father, Earl Spencer. She wore it during her first official trip abroad as Princess of Wales. That necklace, according to a hotel guest present during Meghan's pop-up boutique, was seen inside a rotating glass case with a discreet price tag attached to the stand underneath. The site reportedly sent one British guest into visible shock, prompting her to leave the event early, allegedly muttering that it felt like being in a pawn shop built on ghosts. Of course, questions abound. How did Meghan obtain these pieces? Were they given to her as a gift, or were they lent to her by Harry as part of a shared trust? Was she legally entitled to sell them, or even wear them in the first place? These are questions the public is demanding answers to, and the silence from the Sussex camp has only deepened the intrigue. It's worth revisiting the timeline here. In the early days of Harry and Meghan's relationship, the Duchess of Sussex was frequently seen wearing Diana's jewelry. The press often highlighted it with glowing admiration. At first, it was viewed as a touching gesture. Harry honoring his late mother by sharing her memory with the woman he loved. There were earrings during the couple's visit to Australia, a gold bracelet in Fiji, a ring during their visit to Tonga. Each appearance was symbolic. Each item was a physical connection to Diana. Yet none of these gestures came with public documentation. There was no legal announcement of a transfer of ownership. No press release indicating that the jewelry had been formally given to Meghan as inheritance. Much of it was interpreted based on appearances and speculation. And now, in hindsight, that vagueness seems to have opened the door to an interpretation no one expected, that some of these pieces may have been sold without Harry's knowledge or consent. One former palace insider has claimed that the jewelry was kept in a secure location in the couple's Montecito home, inside a walk-in safe with restricted access. According to that same source, Only two people had the passcode, Meghan and Harry. And as Harry spent increasing amounts of time in the UK during legal proceedings and royal events, Meghan reportedly began handling business operations related to her independent brand ventures in California. An effort some say was her way of establishing financial independence from the royals. It was during this time, between late 2024 and early 2025, that certain pieces of Diana's jewelry reportedly disappeared from inventory. According to documents that have not yet been made public but are believed to have circulated within royal legal circles, an internal audit conducted by a private financial advisor in the U.S. flagged a number of unaccounted-for heirloom assets. This review coincided with the creation of a shell corporation linked to a boutique lifestyle brand founded by Meghan and quietly filed in the state of California. Of course, Meghan has not confirmed these allegations. No public statement has been released categorically denying the sales. But as silence continues from her camp, more guests from the now infamous hotel suite boutique are coming forward. One described the experience as surreal, another as something you'd expect from a Kardashian, not a royal. An LA-based fashion stylist who attended said she was told the pieces were exclusively available for high-tier donors, who contributed to a wellness fund associated with Meghan's latest venture. She described the setup as private, quiet, and curated for discretion. But not everyone saw it as discreet. In fact, for those who knew Diana personally, the event has been described as horrifying. One former friend of the late princess, who has remained anonymous, said, "Diana gave the world so much, and now it seems parts of her are being sold off piece by piece. It's heartbreaking." Even more heartbreaking, according to insiders, is Harry's reaction. In the next section, we'll walk through what happened when Harry found out. Not from Meghan. Not from a trusted friend, but from leaked photos, hashtags, and anonymous tips. And when the reality sank in, sources say the pain wasn't just emotional, it was personal. Los Angeles has always been a city of reinvention, a place where names are built, broken, and built again. A place where opulence is expected, privacy is elusive, and money moves behind closed doors, often wearing a smile. In that glimmering landscape of red carpets and boutique brands, it wasn't entirely shocking that Meghan Markle would once again emerge, but this time, not on a stage or a royal podium. No. This time, it was inside a penthouse suite at one of Beverly Hills' most exclusive hotels, where a so-called private event turned out to be the most controversial move she's made since stepping down as a working royal. It was early March 2025 when invitations began quietly circulating among LA's elite. The guest list was tightly controlled, with NDAs reportedly required upon entry. Attendees were told they were invited to a private unveiling of a modern wellness and elegance concept curated by Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. There was no mention of jewelry, no mention of Princess Diana, just an air of exclusivity wrapped in the usual aesthetic of lifestyle branding. Whispers of organic teas, mindfulness workshops, minimalist interiors, and timeless elegance. But what guests found when they arrived was something far more provocative. According to attendees, the top floor of the hotel had been transformed. The entire suite had been redecorated to resemble a boutique showroom. Soft lighting cast golden hues across cream-colored drapery. Lounge music played gently in the background. Crystal glasses of Prosecco were served by staff wearing black gloves. And there, in the center of it all, were the displays, sleek, modern glass cases under soft spotlights, each containing individual pieces of vintage jewelry. No labels, no loud branding. Just cards that read, "For inquiry, speak privately with concierge." One guest described the moment she realized what she was looking at. A bracelet that looked eerily familiar. A necklace she had seen in a photo of Princess Diana in the 80s. She leaned closer, and when she asked the concierge about the origin, she was allegedly told, each piece carries a history, some even a royal one. The statement, vague and indirect, was just enough to ignite speculation without confirming anything outright. Others in the room caught on too. According to leaked reports, at least 3 stylists and a celebrity journalist in attendance began discreetly photographing the displays. One image, later posted anonymously, showed a sapphire ring positioned atop a velvet cushion with a handwritten tag that read, "Her freedom, her fire. Make it yours." Another image captured what appeared to be a gold necklace with a simple sapphire pendant and a small card describing it as a personal treasure worn by a woman who inspired millions. By the next day, screenshots of the images began circulating on WhatsApp groups among fashion insiders and jewelry collectors. And within 72 hours, the story broke, first on a gossip blog, then in the British tabloids, and finally on international news wires. The boutique event Meghan had curated wasn't just a wellness branding moment. It was, according to mounting reports, a covert jewelry showcase. And the items on display? Pieces from Princess Diana's private collection. The fallout was immediate and vicious. But how did such an event even come together? Sources say the suite was rented under a private shell company registered in Delaware and linked back to a limited liability corporation founded by Meghan in early 2025. The hotel staff were reportedly unaware of the nature of the event until the day of. According to one employee, the only instruction they received was absolute discretion. VIP level. No questions. It wasn't until social media exploded that management realized the significance of what had occurred on their property. Financially, the event appears to have been carefully calculated. Rather than open the items up to a public auction, the approach was one of targeted placement. Each piece was made available to a short list of pre-screened individuals who had the means and interest to purchase privately. This tactic mirrors strategies used by high-end luxury brands and discreet antique dealers, emphasizing exclusivity over transparency. The result, however, was a media disaster. Critics were quick to label the move as tone-deaf. To them, this wasn't just a failed business decision, it was a moral misstep. Selling family heirlooms, especially ones connected to a globally beloved figure like Diana, was seen by many as a betrayal of public trust. And for someone who had repeatedly positioned herself as a humanitarian, a women's advocate, and a voice of dignity, the optics were devastating. What's more, Meghan's presence at the event was minimal, according to those in attendance. She was there briefly, arriving through a back entrance, wearing a tailored white suit and minimal jewelry. She greeted a few attendees, made brief remarks about the power of legacy, and then disappeared. There were no public photos, no media statements, no live coverage. It was as if the event had been designed to happen and be forgotten before the world noticed. But the world did notice. Back in London, royal advisors were reportedly caught off guard. According to an insider, Buckingham Palace had received no prior notification about the event, nor had they been told about any transfer or sale of Diana's items. The discovery prompted a flurry of activity behind closed doors, with legal teams beginning quiet inquiries into the provenance of each piece Meghan had worn since her wedding. The goal was simple: find out what was gifted, what was loaned, and what was still legally considered part of Diana's estate. This ambiguity around ownership has only added to the confusion. Royal protocol is notoriously complex when it comes to inheritance. Some pieces are gifts from the crown and remain royal property. Others are personal items passed down through wills or direct gifts. If Meghan did, in fact, sell items without clear legal ownership, the consequences could be significant, not only in public opinion but potentially in court. Meanwhile, attendees from the boutique event began telling their stories. One American socialite said she left the room halfway through because she felt uncomfortable being part of something that felt so sacred and yet so commercial. A prominent jewelry buyer said he had been asked not to mention the name Diana aloud while negotiating price. Another fashion blogger reported hearing one of the event organizers refer to the pieces as timeless relics of feminine power. Perhaps the most damning account came from a royal historian who had seen the leaked photos and identified at least two of the pieces as once belonging to Diana. In an interview, he stated, "This is not about money. This is about narrative. If Meghan sold those items, she didn't just lose respect, she crossed a line few in royal history ever have. She used legacy for leverage." In the days following the scandal, the hotel quietly issued a statement distancing itself from the nature of the event. The suite was immediately stripped of its custom decor. The staff involved were rotated out. And Meghan returned to her Montecito home, making no public appearances for nearly a week. All eyes turned to Harry. He had not attended the event. He was reportedly unaware of its existence until after the news broke. When asked by a photographer at LAX whether the rumors were true, Harry reportedly replied with a blank stare and a tight jaw. Behind palace gates, word was spreading that this had not just rattled him, it had devastated him. It wasn't a formal announcement or a quiet word in private that informed Prince Harry of what had transpired. It wasn't a confession. It wasn't even a confrontation. Prince Harry found out the way millions of others did, through chaos. Through whispers turned into headlines. through photographs leaking onto social media, through text from former friends, and eventually, a call from someone inside the palace who simply asked, "Is this true?" According to insiders, the moment Prince Harry realized that Meghan had sold pieces of his mother's jewelry was not a scene from a marriage built on open communication. It was, instead, a moment of deafening silence. A friend close to Harry described the shock as a body blow. Another said he didn't raise his voice. He didn't yell, but something in him cracked. The timeline is critical. Harry had been in the UK at the time of the Los Angeles event, reportedly working on charitable initiatives and preparing for a scheduled visit to a military veteran center. His trip was supposed to be brief and apolitical, just a quiet nod to his continued support for causes close to his heart. Meghan had stayed behind in California, ostensibly to manage their brand and projects still tied to their post-royal identity. They had communicated over video calls and text messages, but there was no mention of the jewelry event. Not once. What makes this moment so critical in their story is the way Harry found out. A screenshot. Just a screenshot, one sent to him by a distant friend he hadn't spoken to in nearly a year. It showed the sapphire pendant necklace resting on velvet, with a caption that read, "Once a princess's treasure, now a silent auction gem." Harry reportedly stared at the image in disbelief for several minutes before replying with one word. "What?" Another photo followed. Then another. He tried calling Meghan. No answer. He texted. Nothing. Hours passed. It wasn't until the story began trending online that Meghan returned the call. But by then, Harry had already spoken to 3 people: his lawyer, a private royal archivist in the UK, and his brother's assistant. Those conversations confirmed what he had feared. The sapphire pendant was indeed once worn by Diana. The aquamarine ring had not been photographed since his wedding. And the gold bracelet, while not catalogued officially, was believed to have been a private keepsake. The call between Harry and Meghan, according to those familiar with its contents, was not a calm exchange. It began with silence, then a question. "Did you sell it?" Meghan reportedly responded that the event was part of a long-planned brand launch, and that she had every right to do so. But that wasn't what Harry asked. He pressed again. "Did you sell my mother's things?" There was a pause. Meghan's alleged response was, "It's just jewelry, Harry." That sentence, according to an aide, was the moment Harry's demeanor changed. He reportedly said, "To you, maybe. But to me, it's her." What followed was not a shouting match in the traditional sense. Harry didn't yell, but he did accuse. He brought up trust, memory, legacy, promises. He reminded Meghan of the night before their wedding, when he had shown her those very pieces and told her they represented not just history, but his mother's love. He asked how she could betray that, not just by selling the items, but by doing it without telling him. Meghan's defense, as told by a source close to her, centered on autonomy. She argued that they were building a new life. That symbolism doesn't pay mortgages. That Diana herself, had she been alive, would have understood. But Harry wasn't convinced. In his view, there was no understanding to be had. There was no justification that could make this right. He reportedly ended the call by saying, "You didn't just sell jewelry. You sold something I was still grieving." What makes this revelation even more painful is what happened next. Harry began to question what else he hadn't been told. If the jewelry was sold without his knowledge, what about other matters? Business deals? Conversations with Netflix? Property agreements? According to one confidant, Harry said privately, "I'm starting to feel like a guest in my own life." That internal spiral took a toll. In the days following the call, Harry canceled 2 public appearances. He was seen looking visibly distressed outside a London hotel. For a man used to keeping composure under intense media scrutiny, the emotional weight was impossible to hide. Royal staff noted his sudden withdrawal, describing his behavior as detached and deeply shaken. Back in California, Meghan issued no public apology, no clarification. She returned to her brand work, releasing a brief statement through a spokesperson that emphasized empowering women to honor the legacies that came before them. Critics pounced on the vagueness. To many, it felt like a veiled justification for what had happened. To others, it was an avoidance tactic. Meanwhile, inside the royal family, reactions varied. William, according to reports, was incandescent. A close source said he couldn't believe it and felt as if a sacred trust had been violated. Princess and is said to have demanded a legal review. And Queen Camilla, while silent publicly, was reported to have told a confidant, "If this is true, we're done pretending." The breach between Harry and Meghan was now more than just personal. It was institutional. Legal advisors for the royal estate began quietly looking into the chain of custody for each piece Meghan had worn over the years. Questions were asked about whether those items had ever been formally transferred to her, or whether they remained part of Diana's estate, over which Harry has only partial legal control. As all of this unfolded, the press exploded. Headlines screamed of betrayal, deceit, royal shame. Social media exploded with hashtags and speculation. And Harry, caught between the legacy of his mother and the decisions of his wife, stood alone. The man who once walked behind Diana's casket as the world watched had now been thrust into a new form of mourning, not over a life lost, but a legacy compromised. Privately, friends say Harry began rethinking everything. His role in the family, his future in California, his partnership with Meghan. They say he felt like he was relearning who she really is, and it was painful. That the idea of selling Diana's treasures wasn't just about money, it was about meaning. And once that meaning was discarded, something inside him changed. Doria Ragland has always been seen as Meghan Markle's quiet anchor. Throughout the ups and downs of Meghan's life in the spotlight, from her royal wedding to her departure from the royal family, Doria has remained largely silent, often appearing calm and supportive in public while keeping her personal views tightly guarded. But behind that silence, sources suggest, may lie a more complex involvement in the jewelry scandal that has sent shockwaves through royal circles and deeply wounded Prince Harry. As Meghan's mother and closest confidant, Doria has reportedly played a crucial role in her daughter's life decisions, both personal and financial. While she is not known to have any official business title within Meghan's brands or ventures, those familiar with the family dynamics describe her as an ever-present figure in Meghan's planning, especially when it comes to image, privacy, and self-presentation. So when the story broke that Princess Diana's jewelry was allegedly sold through a private boutique event organized under Meghan's supervision, questions quickly arose about how much Doria knew and whether she encouraged or cautioned against it. One insider, who claims to have worked briefly on logistics for Meghan's wellness brand launch, recalled seeing Doria attend several planning sessions. These meetings reportedly included discussions about brand messaging, exclusive merchandise, and VIP outreach. According to the source, during one such meeting, a suggestion was raised about including legacy pieces as part of the event's emotional appeal. The source says Doria didn't object. Instead, she reportedly said, "Legacy is powerful when it's personal. People want to feel connected to something real." That comment, though vague, has taken on new significance in light of what happened. Was Doria referring to Diana's jewelry? Did she see the inclusion of those pieces as a bold statement of Meghan's own claim to a royal lineage, even if unofficial? Or was she merely reflecting on branding strategy, unaware of what Meghan had actually planned? Another figure close to the Sussex circle claims Doria was fully briefed on the jewelry showcase, though she wasn't involved in the financial or legal arrangements. This person described her as supportive, but cautious, allegedly advising Meghan to be mindful of how it could look to the public. If true, this would suggest Doria was at least aware that Diana's jewelry was to be included, and that she may have offered warnings about the potential backlash. But whether those warnings were strong enough, or even heeded, is another matter. What complicates the narrative further is Doria's own image in the media. For years, she has been portrayed as the antithesis of the drama surrounding Meghan's estranged father, Thomas Markle. While Thomas has given interviews, released letters, and criticized Meghan's choices in public, Doria has said almost nothing. That silence has been widely interpreted as grace, restraint, and loyalty. But now, in the wake of the jewelry fallout, that silence is being reinterpreted by some critics as complicity. Did Doria know her daughter was planning to part with items linked to one of the most beloved women in modern history? Did she try to stop her? Or did she believe, as Meghan may have, that those items were rightfully hers to use, sell, or display as she saw fit? It's also worth noting that Doria has reportedly been a stabilizing figure for Meghan during times of intense stress. When Meghan faced scrutiny over her letter to Thomas Markle, Doria was at her side. When the couple left the UK and moved to Canada and then California, Doria helped manage the transition. And when Meghan gave birth to both Archie and Lilibet, it was Doria who stepped in to provide private maternal support. These were not casual acts. They were the acts of someone deeply woven into the fabric of Meghan's life, not just emotionally but logistically. So when Meghan reportedly told Harry over the phone that it's just jewelry, some insiders wondered where Doria's voice had been. Had she endorsed this language? Had she heard Meghan say it before? And more importantly, had she ever challenged it? Another piece of the puzzle is a report that Doria was seen entering the LA hotel on the morning of the boutique event. Though she did not appear in any photos taken inside the suite, a valet working that morning confirmed to journalists that Doria arrived around 10:30 a.m. and left just after noon. That window coincides with the time guests were being welcomed in for private previews. If true, this could indicate that Doria was not only aware of the jewelry on display, but witnessed the reactions of the attendees herself. Yet, in the days since the scandal erupted, Doria has not issued any statement. She has not appeared in public. No close friends or spokespeople have come forward on her behalf. This absence of clarity has only fueled speculation. Some believe she is staying silent out of loyalty. Others believe she is caught in a situation she can no longer influence. One royal analyst offered a particularly poignant perspective. Doria has always been seen as the moral compass. If even she stood by and let this happen, the damage is far deeper than anyone suspected. It means there's no one left in Meghan's circle willing to say no. It's important to remember that Doria's influence over Meghan is not necessarily controlling or manipulative. Many who have encountered her describe her as warm, intelligent, and deeply protective. But protection, when it becomes uncritical support, can sometimes enable poor decisions. If Meghan truly believed she was justified in using or selling Diana's jewelry, Doria may have believed it too, or at the very least, chosen not to challenge her daughter in public or in private. What makes Doria's silence even more striking is her own personal connection to legacy. As a Black woman who raised a biracial daughter in a world that often didn't accept them, she understands the power of heritage and history better than most. She also understands the dangers of being misunderstood, especially by a media machine eager to find villains. That's why many expected her to step in, or at least speak up, when the jewelry backlash began. But she hasn't, and as each day passes, the silence becomes louder. As of now, there is no clear evidence that Doria was financially involved in the event. No records show her name on any corporate filings. But that hasn't stopped speculation. Some believe she helped secure the hotel suite. Others think she introduced Meghan to the stylists who promoted the event behind the scenes. A few insiders claim Doria's influence was more subtle, that she helped shape the emotional language used to present the jewelry as part of a broader message about empowerment and reclaiming history. Whether these claims are true or not, the perception matters. Because in public life, perception often outweighs fact. In the eyes of many, the question now isn't just about whether Meghan did the wrong thing, but whether everyone around her allowed it to happen. And Doria, once viewed as the last steady hand in Meghan's orbit, is now seen as either a silent bystander or a quiet architect. By the time the sun had set over the Beverly Hills skyline, the penthouse suite of the luxury hotel had been completely transformed. It was no longer just a space with a view. It was a curated environment designed to evoke intimacy, sophistication, and reverence. Or at least, that's what it was intended to be. But for some who were invited, what they witnessed inside left them rattled, even disturbed. Because what they thought would be a wellness-centric soft launch from Meghan Markle turned out to be, in their words, an experience that felt eerily detached from the meaning it claimed to represent. The room itself, as described by multiple attendees, was set up like a high-end art gallery. Guests were welcomed with a soft floral scent wafting through the air. Gentle music played. Instrumental renditions of pop songs slowed down to resemble ambient background tracks. Staff dressed in all black stood against the walls, silent, expressionless, trained not to speak unless addressed directly. No phones were allowed, unless for approved media partners. All guests had to sign non-disclosure agreements at the door, and their invitations had been vetted carefully in advance. A young stylist from a major LA-based fashion brand was one of the first to arrive. She had received the invitation weeks prior but was told little about what to expect, just that Meghan Markle would be revealing a deeply personal initiative centered on legacy, power, and redefinition. When she walked in, the stylist noticed what she first assumed were costume pieces. But then, under the bright glass dome of a rotating jewelry case, she spotted something familiar, a diamond and sapphire pendant she recognized from photographs of Princess Diana in the early 1990s. She wasn't the only one. Within minutes, murmurs began circulating through the room. Another guest, an entertainment lawyer who had previously worked with clients connected to the British press, noticed a gold bracelet identical to the one Diana wore on a visit to Angola during her famed landmine awareness campaign. I thought maybe it was a replica, he later told a reporter anonymously. But then I looked at the engraving. It had the exact same initials on the clasp. I knew then it was hers. The setup, they said, was minimalist by design. Each jewelry piece was displayed alone, on a pedestal or inside a case, lit from above by soft spotlights. Below each piece was a small card containing a phrase, not a description, not a name, but an emotionally suggestive message. She walked so others could run. Freedom has a weight. Wear what she once dared. They wore it attributed. But the tone of reverence was unmistakable. An older woman, invited as a donor to a women's empowerment initiative, recalled pausing in front of a ring and aquamarine piece she knew well. She said she remembered watching Princess Diana wear it during an evening gala shortly after her divorce. It had become known unofficially as Diana's new life ring, a symbol of her independence after years in a royal role that felt more like a cage. Seeing it there, in a glass box with no security nearby, left the woman shaken. It felt unholy, she said, like seeing the crown jewels in a mall display window. But not everyone in attendance was horrified. Several guests reportedly expressed admiration for the way the event was humanizing legacy. One Instagram influencer who posted a cryptic photo of the event's floral centerpiece later wrote, "There's something powerful about reclaiming icons. Legacy doesn't have to be locked in glass boxes." That post, while vague, drew hundreds of comments. Many defending Meghan's right to define her relationship to history on her own terms. Others, however, found the concept troubling. Perhaps the most emotional moment of the evening came when one guest, reportedly a woman who had known Diana personally during her work with AIDS patients, broke down in tears in front of one of the displays. According to two other guests nearby, the woman had to be escorted from the room after recognizing a necklace she said Diana wore during their final meeting. She allegedly whispered, "I never thought I'd see it sold." The staff at the hotel were instructed not to speak about what happened that night, but one employee, speaking on the condition of anonymity, described the mood as oddly hushed. Not the type of buzz you'd expect at a brand launch. More like a museum with tension. Some people were excited, the employee said, but most just stood around quietly. It was like they were waiting for someone to say this wasn't real. And yet, it was real. According to one guest who reviewed the price sheets available only to qualified buyers, the pieces were being offered at discreet but substantial amounts. While no specific numbers were confirmed, it was widely believed that the aquamarine ring had a valuation starting at 6 figures. Buyers were encouraged to make inquiries after the event via encrypted email. The entire setup had the feeling of a private collector's auction, except the items had once belonged to the most beloved royal woman in modern history. One detail that stood out to many was the absence of Meghan herself. Though she was the host, her presence was fleeting. She entered quietly through a side hallway about 45 minutes into the evening. Wearing a cream-colored pantsuit with no visible jewelry, she gave a brief speech that lasted less than 5 minutes. According to one attendee, she said something to the effect of, "Legacy isn't about what we keep, it's about what we pass on. This is my way of passing it forward." Then she exited without taking questions or mingling. This departure left many confused. Was she distancing herself from the commercial side of the event? Was it an artistic statement meant to provoke reflection, not conversation? Or was it a strategic avoidance of the harder questions? Several fashion editors in attendance noted the surreal contrast between the emotional weight of the pieces and the clinical nature of the setup. It felt like a luxury showroom haunted by memory, one said. Beautiful, yes. Tasteful, maybe. But reverent? No. Within hours of the event concluding, whispers began reaching the press. While no one officially broke their NDA, anonymous sources from LA's stylist circles began leaking photos and testimonies to editors they trusted. By morning, social media was ablaze. The photos weren't high resolution, but they were clear enough to identify key pieces. The sapphire pendant, the aquamarine ring, the gold bracelet. And with them, the headlines began pouring in. Backlash was swift and unrelenting. The idea that Meghan had curated an exclusive showcase of Diana's jewelry behind closed doors, with price tags attached and press blackouts enforced, felt like a betrayal not just to Harry but to the millions who still see Diana as a global symbol of compassion, authenticity, and sacrifice. What may have started as a high-concept fusion of empowerment and legacy branding became a viral cautionary tale about the risks of privatizing public emotion. The event, instead of elevating Meghan's image, cast her further into controversy and deepened the chasm between her and the royal family. In the carefully curated world of public image, few couples have ever walked the line between fame and controversy like Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. For years, they were seen as the bold, independent voices of a new royal generation. Breaking traditions, signing multi-million-dollar media deals, and living in luxury on the West Coast. But beneath the surface of Netflix documentaries, Spotify podcasts, and glossy magazine features, financial cracks have long been forming. And with the jewelry scandal bringing renewed scrutiny to their choices, a far more sobering truth is coming into focus. The Sussexes may be on the verge of financial collapse. To understand the gravity of their current situation, one has to trace the trajectory of their post-royal financial life. After stepping back from royal duties in 2020, Harry and Meghan relocated first to Canada, then to California, determined to carve out a new identity as financially independent public figures. They sought freedom, autonomy, and the ability to monetize their fame on their own terms. At first, it seemed to work. The couple signed a deal with Netflix reportedly worth up to $100 million. Around the same time, they also inked a $20 million podcasting agreement with Spotify. These deals were heralded by some media outlets as visionary moves, signaling a new chapter in celebrity royalty crossovers. With their star power, emotional backstory, and global recognition, it seemed they were set to build a thriving media empire. But things didn't go according to plan. By late 2023, internal tensions between the couple and their content partners had begun to emerge. Netflix, according to insiders, grew frustrated with the couple's slow delivery pace, inconsistent production plans, and a perceived lack of focus. Their first major project, a docuseries titled Harry and Meghan, drew strong viewership but also polarizing reviews. Critics accused it of being overly curated, emotionally manipulative, and lacking in substance. Audiences quickly moved on. Subsequent projects stalled. A planned animated series inspired by female historical figures was abruptly canceled. A nature documentary was delayed indefinitely. Meanwhile, Netflix, under pressure to cut costs, reportedly began quietly renegotiating the scope and payout structures of major talent deals, including the Sussexes. According to one insider familiar with the matter, the couple's contract, while still active on paper, was no longer as lucrative in practice. Spotify presented an even more troubling case. In mid-2023, the platform announced it would be ending its deal with Archwell Audio after just one season of Meghan's podcast, Archetypes. The show had drawn headlines, but failed to meet listenership targets. An executive at Spotify publicly hinted that the deal had not lived up to expectations, and that other creators were delivering more engaging content for far less investment. Quietly, Meghan and Harry were dropped. These setbacks weren't just symbolic. They had major financial implications. Media deals like the ones the couple signed often include front-end payments with larger sums distributed upon project completion or milestone delivery. When projects are delayed, canceled, or underperforming, much of that potential revenue is forfeited. And in the Sussexes' case, their entire financial model relied on these projects being successful, consistent, and scalable. The fallout began to manifest in subtle ways. First, there was the Montecito mansion, purchased for approximately $14.7 million in 2020. The lavish estate, complete with 9 bedrooms, a tea house, a guest cottage, and sweeping views of the California hills, became a symbol of their post-royal success. But by 2024, whispers began surfacing that the couple was struggling to maintain the property. Local contractors complained of delayed payments. There were rumors that at least one refinancing attempt had been quietly initiated. A former staff member who spoke anonymously claimed there were cash flow issues that led to reduced staff hours and cost-cutting measures. Then came the lawsuits. Between security expenses, legal disputes over defamation claims, and Harry's ongoing litigation against the UK government over police protection, the couple's legal bills have reportedly ballooned into the millions. Legal analysts say such cases are extraordinarily costly to pursue, especially across multiple countries with differing legal systems. And yet, Harry has remained adamant about fighting them. Even their lifestyle began drawing criticism. Reports of Meghan's high-end wardrobe purchases, designer home renovations, and expensive private travel added to the perception that they were living well beyond their means. According to one financial expert who has advised celebrities on wealth management, they're living like billionaires on millionaire contracts. That's not sustainable. Behind closed doors, sources say tensions between Meghan and Harry about money began to grow. Harry, who inherited a portion of his mother's estate and a small trust from the Queen Mother, was said to be increasingly uncomfortable with how quickly funds were being depleted. Meghan, on the other hand, allegedly pushed to pursue new ventures, wellness brands, lifestyle products, and even real estate speculation. It was in this environment of increasing pressure that the jewelry scandal unfolded. The decision to sell Diana's jewelry, if indeed it happened as alleged, may not have been just symbolic. It may have been necessary. Desperate times often demand desperate measures, and for Meghan, leveraging the one asset she still had exclusive access to, her connection to Diana, might have felt like the last viable path forward. After all, branding herself as a new generation royal wasn't just a statement, it was a strategy. And jewelry, particularly Diana's, wasn't just merchandise. It was marketing gold. In the days following the boutique event, financial documents linked to one of Meghan's LLCs were obtained by a watchdog group and reviewed by multiple media outlets. They revealed a recent injection of funds believed to have come from private sales, coinciding with the timeframe of the hotel suite showcase. The money was quickly rerouted into multiple new ventures, including a skincare line, a podcast development firm, and the lease on a newly secured office space in downtown Los Angeles. Still, these moves may be too little, too late. With public opinion souring and former allies distancing themselves, the couple is reportedly having difficulty attracting new investors. One business insider close to a California venture capital firm confirmed they had been approached by Meghan's team but declined involvement, citing reputational risk. In today's media landscape, brand image is everything, and right now, theirs is suffering. Royal analysts have weighed in, too. Some believe the financial unraveling is not just a result of bad business decisions but of isolation. They've cut themselves off from the palace, from the public, and now from each other, said one expert. When your brand is built on legacy, and you damage the very legacy you were entrusted with, the foundation starts to crumble. What makes this chapter so tragic is the contrast between potential and reality. Harry and Meghan had every tool to build something meaningful: fame, attention, a global platform. But instead of steady growth, there has been noise. Instead of sustainability, there has been spectacle. Instead of legacy, there has been scandal. Now, facing the fallout from the jewelry event, canceled contracts, and growing debt, they are at a crossroads. Sources say they've considered selling the Montecito property. Others say they've discussed relocating once again. This time perhaps to another country entirely, where press scrutiny is less intense and lifestyle expenses are lower. But geography won't fix what's broken. For Harry, the financial disaster is now intertwined with emotional betrayal. What began as a plan to build a new life has become a painful reminder of everything he left behind and everything he's now losing. For Meghan, the collapse of her ventures may signal the end of her attempt to reinvent herself as a brand separate from the royals. And for the public, the story of Diana's jewelry has become a symbol of excess, exploitation, and ultimately, erosion. The media machine did not need long to react. Within hours of the first leaked images from the boutique event surfacing, the story had erupted into a firestorm that dominated headlines across both sides of the Atlantic. What began as hushed rumors and cryptic online posts exploded into full-blown global coverage, with commentators, journalists, royal experts, and the general public weighing in on what quickly became one of the most sensational royal-related controversies in years. British tabloids were the first to pounce. The Daily Mail's front page carried a bold headline: "Diana's Jewels for Sale. Meghan's latest move stuns royal family." The Sun followed with, "A right royal shame. Harry blindsided by secret jewelry showcase." Other papers quickly joined the fray, each adding new layers of speculation, outrage, and pointed opinion. Piers Morgan, long known as one of Meghan's most vocal critics, launched into a scathing attack on his primetime talk show. "This isn't just tasteless," he said. "It's disgraceful. This woman has no boundaries. She's not just trading on the memory of Diana. She's dismantling it, piece by piece, to fund her vanity projects." But the backlash didn't stop at the UK's borders. American media outlets, who had previously embraced the Sussexes with far more sympathy, were also visibly shaken. TMZ ran the story under the headline, "Meghan's glittering scandal. Did she really sell Diana's jewels?" Meanwhile, Page 6 quoted an anonymous Hollywood source saying, "It's all anyone in LA is talking about. Meghan miscalculated big time." This wasn't empowering. It was exploitative. Social media platforms became battlegrounds almost immediately. Twitter was flooded with hashtags like hashtag Diana deserved better, hashtag not your legacy, hashtag Meghan the merchant, and hashtag Sussex sellout. Thousands of users shared side-by-side photos, one of Princess Diana wearing a signature ring or necklace, the other showing the same piece under a glass display at Meghan's boutique event. The visual impact was powerful and damning. Some posts garnered millions of views within days. Instagram wasn't kinder. Though Meghan's loyal supporters attempted to frame the event as reclaiming personal history or transforming grief into growth, their efforts were drowned out by a tsunami of critical commentary. Influencers who had attended the boutique event began turning off their comments or deleting posts altogether after being accused of complicity. Fashion bloggers who once praised Meghan's style began retracting support, with one writing, "There's a difference between inspiration and desecration. This crosses the line." Even Reddit, a platform not typically known for sustained discussions about royal affairs, was ablaze. On its r/royal family and r/Meghan and Harry subreddits, threads dissecting the jewelry's provenance, analyzing the hotel suite photos, and speculating on financial motives reached thousands of comments. Longtime supporters of the couple admitted disappointment. Detractors saw it as vindication. Television coverage took the outrage even further. On Good Morning Britain, a royal expert claimed the event was an unprecedented breach of royal dignity. On American morning shows like Today and The View, panelists debated whether Meghan had the legal and moral right to sell items so deeply tied to public memory. "She might have had legal ownership," said one commentator, "but she clearly didn't have the moral high ground." Royal experts began to weigh in en masse. Dickie Arbiter, a former press secretary to Queen Elizabeth II, called the incident deeply troubling and profoundly disrespectful. He emphasized that Diana's jewelry was never meant to be a financial asset. It was a family heirloom, a reminder of the woman who had changed the image of royalty through empathy and vulnerability. "To reduce that legacy to price tags behind velvet ropes is unforgivable," he added. Meanwhile, members of the public wrote letters to editors, royal commentators, and even directly to the palace. Calls for an official investigation into the ownership of the jewelry began gaining momentum. Some urged the royal family to legally reclaim any pieces believed to be part of Diana's estate. There were even online petitions demanding that Harry and Meghan be stripped of their remaining titles. But perhaps the most impactful response came from the younger generation, those who had never met Diana but grew up idolizing her. Young women who saw Diana as a symbol of quiet rebellion and maternal strength were among the most vocal critics. One widely shared TikTok video showed a young woman sobbing as she recounted how she had always admired Meghan, only to feel betrayed by what she called a calculated move to monetize pain. The emotional weight of Diana's memory made this incident particularly explosive. Unlike past controversies involving Meghan, whether about interviews, documentaries, or palace dynamics, this one felt different. It wasn't just about politics or public image. It was about legacy. And for millions of people, Diana's legacy was sacred. Public discourse quickly turned to Harry. Where was he? What did he know? Why hadn't he stopped it? Though insiders leaked that Harry had been unaware and was deeply hurt, that didn't shield him entirely. Some questioned whether he was turning a blind eye. Others sympathized, seeing him as a man caught between love and loyalty, struggling to navigate a betrayal that hit far too close to home. Media outlets began replaying old footage of Diana, her visits to hospitals, her handshakes with AIDS patients, her quiet moments with children. These clips, juxtaposed against news reports of velvet jewelry cases and discreet concierge transactions, painted a stark picture. The contrast was visceral. It wasn't just poor optics. It was emotional dissonance. Journalists began digging further, tracing the history of each piece of jewelry Meghan had worn publicly since 2018. Articles emerged detailing how Diana acquired each item, when she wore them, and what they symbolized. For instance, one report traced the aquamarine ring back to Diana's final days, noting how she wore it to a charity gala just weeks before her death. The implication was clear. These weren't just trinkets, they were fragments of a woman's life and legacy. Meanwhile, talk shows and podcasts filled the airwaves with debates. Should Meghan apologize? Should Harry make a statement? Would the royal family ever publicly respond, or would their silence continue? The speculation was endless, but the sentiment was unified across ideological lines: conservative, progressive, royalist, or Republican. This had struck a nerve. Even the fashion world, which had long supported Meghan's image as a style icon, began to shift tone. Prominent stylists and magazine editors issued statements distancing themselves from the event. One well-known fashion editor tweeted, "Style without substance is just spectacle." And this spectacle came at too high a price. Amidst all this, Meghan remained silent. No press conference. No apology. Just a carefully worded statement through a publicist claiming the event was intended to honor feminine resilience through curated symbolism. But the damage was already done. To the public, that phrasing sounded like spin. What they wanted was clarity. What they got was corporate vagueness. The palace, true to form, maintained its traditional stance of silence. But royal insiders leaked that the Queen Consort and Prince William were personally appalled. Princess, and known for her stoicism, reportedly called the incident disgraceful. No one was offering a public olive branch. By the end of the week, Meghan's brand suffered its worst week on record. Online engagement plummeted. Merchandise sales dropped. Calls for boycotts increased. And behind the scenes, public relations teams were said to be scrambling to contain reputational risk. It had become more than just a scandal. It was a reckoning. In the days following the explosive backlash, as headlines scorched her name and social media boiled with outrage, Meghan Markle maintained a careful, deliberate silence. Not a single Instagram post, no podcast audio, no press conference. Her world, once dominated by carefully curated messaging and public engagement, had suddenly gone quiet. But behind that silence, sources say, was a woman who did not see the situation the way the public did. To Meghan, the jewelry display was not a betrayal, it was a statement. According to two people close to her circle, Meghan believed that using Diana's jewelry was not only appropriate, but symbolic. In private conversations after the event, she allegedly framed her decision as a continuation of Diana's legacy, rather than an erasure of it. "I wasn't selling Diana," she reportedly told a friend. "I was sharing her. I was giving her story new meaning." That mindset, as one source put it, is key to understanding how Meghan viewed the entire controversy. While most of the world saw the event as a commodification of memory, Meghan reportedly viewed it as a transformative moment, a way to bring what she saw as a cold, closed-off royal legacy into a new, accessible space. One person close to the planning said Meghan saw the jewelry as a portal, a tangible symbol of how women could reclaim power through history, fashion, and storytelling. "Legacy has no value if it stays locked in a box," she allegedly told her branding team during a pre-event meeting. Diana was a rebel, a rule breaker. She would never want her spirit to be archived and kept under glass by people who never really knew her. This statement, if true, was echoed in the carefully worded public messaging that emerged days after the scandal broke. A representative for Meghan issued a short statement through Archwell's media office, saying the event had been designed to highlight feminine courage, individuality, and empowerment through select items that once belonged to a woman who inspired millions. But that framing did little to soothe the backlash. If anything, it inflamed it. Critics argued that reframing the sale of heirlooms as empowerment was disingenuous. Empowerment, they said, was not a price tag. It wasn't an invitation-only auction in a luxury hotel suite. It wasn't velvet cushions and poetic phrases on display cards. It was action, compassion, integrity, values Diana had lived by and died protecting. Internally, Meghan was reportedly stunned by how quickly the narrative turned against her. In her mind, the event had been tasteful, elegant, even reverent. She had not expected such vitriol. When photos leaked online, Meghan initially believed they would generate admiration, not outrage. "It's being misunderstood," she reportedly told a team member. "People are reacting to the optics, not the message." But as the story spiraled, Meghan's tone shifted. According to one close contact, she became defensive, frustrated not only by the backlash but by what she saw as betrayal from within. She reportedly questioned how the event details had leaked and demanded to know who had photographed the displays. At one point, she allegedly said, "Why is it always my message that gets twisted?" Other royals sell access all the time. I make one bold move, and the world melts down. This reaction, insiders say, was part of a broader pattern, one where Meghan framed criticism as misunderstanding or envy rather than a legitimate public response. In private, she blamed the British press, conservative royalists, and insecure gatekeepers of Diana's legacy. They've decided Diana belongs to them, she told a friend, but she belonged to the world. And Harry and I are the only ones truly honoring that. The comment drew mixed reactions even among those close to her. One individual who had previously worked with Meghan on philanthropic efforts admitted feeling uncomfortable. It wasn't about whether she had the right, they said. It was about whether it was the right thing to do. There's a difference. She didn't seem to see that. Harry, meanwhile, had already distanced himself emotionally.